Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode here of Punch the Face Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Stubbs. Appreciate you joining me here this week. Again, I want to apologize about sounding so horrible last week. I don't sound the greatest right now, but I'm a lot better, as one DM told me I sound like a choking cat. But I wanted to talk as much this week because I am joined by the incomparable, the very charismatic, the one and only Adam Abramowitz of SaturdayNightBoxing.com, also known as SN Boxing on Twitter. Adam, good evening and welcome back here to the show, my brother.
How are you, Brandon? I'm glad to hear that you're feeling a little better. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Thanks for having me.
Well, absolutely, my man. I mean, it's a strange world we're living in. You know, we're going to talk some heavyweight division here momentarily. Also going to talk some Shawn Porter. We're going to talk a little bit of like heavyweight. We got two cards this weekend on HBO and on ESPN that we're both interested in, that we kind of have some different takes on. So we'll touch on that, and as well, if you're listening to the show live, you can be a part of it by calling in. Area code 929-477-3165. You can tweet me and Adam throughout the show. I am Brandon P2TF, and Adam is SN Boxing. So, Adam, right now the whole talk in boxing right now is Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. Now, how did we come to this? Well, these two heavyweights have fought in consecutive weeks against different opponents, and kind of the same results, but definitely different means of getting those results. We saw Joshua, as my man Tyson Fury said, have difficulty with a midget, and then we've seen Deontay Wilder completely smoke Bermane Stiverne. You know, let's kind of talk about Deontay Wilder since he's kind of fresh in everyone's memory. What did you think of that performance we saw here Saturday up at the Barclays Center up in Brooklyn?
Well, two things. You know, let's talk a little bit about Wilder. Let's talk a little bit about Stiverne. From the Stiverne standpoint, I saw that when he came into the fight, I think 11 pounds heavier, 18 pounds heavier than whatever it was. It was double digits. He hadn't been active. I knew that was a bad sign. I was already going with a knockout for Wilder. And when you watch Stiverne fight, I mean, he wasn't trying to throw any punches that mattered. Basically, he threw a couple of, jabs to try and keep Wilder off him. But that's about it. I mean, he was not in any type of frame of mind to win the fight. But you need two people to tango. From what I saw from Wilder was focus, determination. He didn't come out listless like he has in the past in some of his fights, especially against Gerald Washington earlier in the year. He was extremely focused and sharp. I know it was only one round, but he had a great jab going. He was on point, and it's a great performance. Nobody wanted to see the fight, and he did exactly what you do with an opponent like that. You know, let's do something spectacular, end it, and have people talk about it. So he did what he should have done. It's unfortunate that was the opponent. However, Stiverne was eventually going to be a mandatory again to somebody, thanks Don King and all that great stuff. But Wilder did what he needed to do. Stiverne was put up a laughable performance. We see that in boxing. So Wilder now has the opportunity to move on to bigger things, we hope. 2018 has a chance to finally provide him that big fight, and it's been years. Some of it is not his fault, but we have been literally waiting for years for it.
Now, just to kind of close the book on Bermane Stiverne, this was only his second fight in like 3 years. He had one fight in between his fight with Deontay Wilder, the fight he won back in 20. Yeah. So with that being stated, just kind of close the book on him. Is this the last time we're going to see him in any sort of legitimate heavyweight fight that has any significance that we can at least see in the immediate future?
I mean, God, I hope so. But let's also look at the realities of boxing. Next year, Fred Kendo is somehow at like 45, going to be fighting for the WBA regular title. So can't ever say never in boxing, but I really don't want to see him. He's going to be, I don't think any network is going to invest in him unless they have to. Don King certainly doesn't keep his fighters active. So I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, he got a $500,000 payday. Hopefully that's enough for him to retire. I hope it will. And I really don't want to see him again.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, the whole talk now is these two gentlemen have both won their fights. Anthony Joshua won 2 weeks ago. We had Wilder here this past weekend. Is this fight, is it a must-happen in 2018? I know later this year we're going to do a show of what we must see in 2018. Is this particular matchup, is this something both these gentlemen have to do in 2018 to satisfy their fan bases?
No, I don't think so, and that's unfortunate. Anthony Joshua is still a relatively new champion, and he's had very few meaningful fights. So if you were to put, let's say, a Joseph Parker unification fight in 2018, and somehow Tyson Fury comes back and gets a license, I mean, that's a really big year, and I don't think his fan base would be upset one bit. Conversely, I think the fight is more important for Wilder than for Joshua. So, Wilder's fan base is itching for him to get a big fight. He hasn't had it. He has more to give. I mean, Joshua has the bigger fan base. Joshua brings more money. I mean, Joshua's in a far better negotiating position. I really want it to happen. I think it would be great for boxing if it happens, but I don't think it has to happen. I mean, do you see it differently?
You know what? Honestly, I agree with you. You kind of hit all of the key points. And, I might as well just go ahead and drop the results here of the Punch to the Face radio poll. The poll results were pretty simple. If who wins Wilder versus Joshua? That was what the poll question was. And we had 4 seemingly easy options. You had Wilder, Joshua, the fight won't happen, and a wild card of Tyson Fury. And the voting went like this. 5% of the voters don't think the fight will happen, which I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit shocked that number's that low, just kind of knowing how boxing is.
Yeah.
Really shocked it's that low. 19% of the voters think Deontay Wilder would win. 13% like that wild card that is Tyson Fury, and an overwhelming 63% of the voters look for Anthony Joshua to win the fight if it were to happen. Now, go ahead.
Before we move forward, I posted this before I knew you were going to do this earlier on the weekend. I think it was Sunday. I posted, does Joshua Wilder happen in 2018? And it was about 62% said yes. This is a couple hundred people responded. 38% said no. So I think that's kind of more representative. I mean, I want it to happen. I hope it happens. But I'm not going to bet anything that it's going to happen. That's where I'm at.
Now, we'll kind of go on this line because you kind of touched on it a little bit, earlier in one of your comments. What is going to be the biggest factor if this fight doesn't happen? Is it going to be the ego of Deontay Wilder, which I'm going to be honest, I don't see an ego there. I see a very confident guy, but, he said when he was being interviewed by Jim Gray, shout out to Jim Gray for being just a complete asshole on the mic. I got to love that guy. But, he said on the mic, he was willing to go overseas to fight Alexander Povetkin. He was willing to go into enemy territory. So I don't think that's going to be a factor, him going over to the UK. I think he's really, honestly, willing to do it. If anything, I think it's going to be the wild card factor, honest to God, of Tyson Fury. Because, like you said, in the event that he can come back and he has a fight and looks decent and is able to fight himself back into shape, if they're looking at, sometimes summer over there in the UK, him versus Joshua financially would blow anything out of the water Joshua Wilder would do. So, I'm leaning more towards it's going to be other fights that happen that throw everything for a loop. I don't think it's going to be Deontay Wilder and his team saying, no, we don't want to go over here, no, we're not going to accept this money. I think Wilder would do it really relatively on the cheap just to shut people up and gain that leverage going forward in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large argument to make that this fight is much bigger in 15 months, 18 months from now. It really is. I mean, Joshua just did poor ratings on Showtime 2 weeks ago. We're talking about less than 350,000 people watched him live. I mean, that's what they get for their crappy-ass cards. You know, when they put a bad card on a Saturday night, that's what they get. And, I mean, granted, this is a Saturday late afternoon slot, so the ratings are usually a little lower. But seriously, we would have expected to be much higher. You know, when it was live against Klitschko, the numbers were about 800,000, the 900,000. So that's the range. So Joshua's not huge in America. Wilder is also not huge in America. However, everybody knows once a boxer becomes huge in America and once a fight explodes, hundreds of millions of dollars involved. I mean, let's not even talk about any of the Floyd Mayweather fights. Let's talk about, you know, something like the Golovkin Canelo fight from earlier this year, or even Canelo Chavez. I'm not saying this gets to that level, but you're seeing $100 million is in play for those fights, $70 million. So I imagine Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Sport, who promote Joshua, understand there's an enormous pool of money in America that would be untapped should the fight happen now. As I said, I'm fine with the fight happening now. I want it to happen now. But I completely understand that if you build it, I mean, if you build it, you each of them fights 2 more fights before that fight or 3 more fights. I mean, you're talking about an exponentially bigger fight if they keep winning. However, you run into problems. Will they keep winning? And that is a real problem. It's not like these two, and Joshua's a very good fighter. However, it's not like these two people are so unbeatable that it's guaranteed that this fight is going to happen in 2018 or the end of 2018 or 2019. They could be knocked off. So there's some risk here. You know, it's the letting the fight marinate. Sometimes that really works out, as we saw with Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. Sometimes it really doesn't work out, as we saw with Gamboa and Juanma Lopez. So it's playing with fire a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see it. You'd love to see it. We're boxing fans, but I kind of understand, you know, I mean, you're talking about $20 million more, $30 million more, $40 million. This is not $0.5 million, $1 million. This is a real difference in money.
So with that being stated, let's just kind of get down to the nitty-gritty. You know, over the last 2 weeks, we've seen really the number 2 heavyweights in the world. We'll get to the other heavyweights here in a moment. But we've seen the top 2 heavyweights in the world fight in separate bouts. Who will win this fight if, you know, when it happens? Just say if it does happen next year.
Yeah.
From what we've seen from their performances over the last 2 weeks, who do you give an edge to in this fight if it were to happen?
Well, you know, a lot of people rag on Wilder. You know, he has technical flaws. He's very wide with his punches. His footwork can be bad. The thing is, if you have one of the best right hands in the world, and he does, you can make a lot of mistakes. We saw him against the Spilka fight where he was pretty much, you know, going life and death with Spilka. And Spilka is nobody's idea of a master boxer. We saw him come from behind against Gerald Washington. We've seen him down. We've seen him look bad. And his right hand rescues him. So I don't dismiss Wilder's chances whatsoever. Here's how I look at it. Joshua has more ways of winning the fight. He can outbox. He's a better combination puncher. I think he is a better corner. I think he's better coached. But Wilder has that chance to win. You know what I mean? You can never count Wilder out. I mean, people are laughing at Wilder's odds, blah, blah, blah. He's just going to get knocked out, blah, blah, blah. Well, if he lands first, or it doesn't matter, even not first, if he lands his best punch, I don't think Joshua can get up from that. So I look at it right now. I'm not doing the prediction, but Joshua has more ways to win the fight, but Wilder has a real way to win the fight. How about you?
Yeah, I'm just going to give a prediction. I honestly say
okay.
I would pick Anthony Joshua right now for the simple fact of, like you said, he can actually box. Wilder sometimes comes in a little wide, a little looping with those shots. The thing is, if he hits you with one of those wide looping shots, it's night-night.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. He's got to be able to connect. And, you know, I look at Joshua being the more polished boxer of the two. I mean, we're never going to confuse Anthony Joshua for a Cuban boxing, pugilist, but, he's got the skill set, for a heavyweight. But I would give him that edge in that regards. But I completely agree with you that Deontay Wilder has that one punch, turning the table kind of power, and we've seen Anthony Joshua go down. We've seen him get rocked when he fought Dylan White. So we know that he can be susceptible, can go down, and if he's going against a hard puncher like Deontay Wilder, he gets hit. He may not get back up like he did when he fought Klitschko. He may not just get wobbled like he did when he fought Dylan White.
Right. I certainly favor Joshua. I'll put it that way. I certainly favor him. I mean, if they fight 5 times, I think Joshua wins 4 of them. But I don't think there are people that are so negative on Wilder, and I understand it, but I don't think they realize like how good that right hand really is. I mean, I've seen him look so terrible, and it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, unless that fight's going 12 rounds, it doesn't matter. He'll connect. There's only one person that's gone the full 12 with him. And I know Joshua hasn't even gone the full, distance. He hasn't got to go 12 with anybody yet. Joshua has real power as well, and it is a problem for Wilder. And the thing about Joshua that I really love is he's a very fluid combination puncher. He has 3 or 4 knockout weapons, or at least power punches that are very good. He has a good inside game for a heavyweight. He's a better, well-rounded fighter. He might have A- power, but Wilder has A+ power. And in the heavyweight division, that means a hell of a lot.
So now that we've gotten, we kind of give the edge to Anthony Joshua if these two were to meet up. We now have to handicap the rest of the heavyweight division because it's kind of a weird place for everybody else. Where does this leave your Joseph Parkers, your Tyson Furies, your Dylan Whites, your Jamal Big Baby Miller, who fights this weekend? Where do they all now fit into this heavyweight picture? Because it's some interchangeable parts, and, I would be recluse if I didn't name Dominic Breazeale, who's now Deontay Wilder's mandatory after winning a very sluggish fight here this past Saturday, also in the Barclays Center up in Brooklyn.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts here. As of last night, for instance, it was announced that Jarrell Miller is going to be signing with Eddie Hearn, and he's also going to be fighting on HBO this Saturday, but apparently the possibility of multiple fights as part of a deal. So, does Eddie really want Miller to be fighting Joshua? Does he want him for Dylan White? I don't know. I know Top Rank has Joseph Parker. What do they plan to do with him? I know they signed Bryant Jennings. I mean, I don't know how everybody wants. And meanwhile, I don't know what Deontay Wilder does if he doesn't get a Joshua fight. I mean, maybe he takes the Breazeale fight, and that's fine. But I mean, there aren't these promoters are going to have to work together. Like there isn't like other divisions where they could just fight within stables and that will keep them busy forever. And you have different networks in play. I don't know how it's going to happen. There's a lot of moving parts. Everybody's kind of like hoarding assets here. Someone's going to have to give. Someone's going to have to. Networks are going to have to give. Promoters are going to have to give. Country, where the fights are going to take place are going to have to give. There's a lot of moving parts right now. And I'm not sure how it's going to shake out. I know that there are a couple of interesting fights that are going to be made in 2018, but I couldn't tell you what they're going to be,
Yeah, because it's just so many weird parts. And like I said, you've got maybe the biggest linchpin of everything is Tyson Fury, who's still the lineal heavyweight champion. Despite all of his issues, he's never lost that title of being the lineal champion. So take that for what it's worth. If he comes back in any semblance of shape, that's going to add even more intrigue to an already very influxed division. But one thing I pointed out during Saturday night's fights are you constantly hear Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder call out each other. They're not calling out Joseph Parker, who owns the other chunk of the heavyweight titles, of the other legitimate title of all the alphabet belts. So that just, points out to me how crappy is Joseph Parker to where the other champions just kind of look at him as being an afterthought and just kind of being a guy who holds a belt and no one that they want to beat up and take his title from. Kind of disrespectful to him, but then again, I completely understand.
I mean, I thought he lost his last fight. I don't think Joseph Parker deserved to beat, Fury's Hughie Fury. I thought he lost. It was a terrible fight to watch. I mean, Hughie Fury back-footed Joseph Parker the whole night, and there's some people that will just never give rounds to somebody that is constantly on his back foot. I will. I don't mind that. I mean, it's not a great style, but it's effective. Nobody says you have to go forward. I mean, there is effective aggression, but again, it has to be effective. I thought Parker was just kind of going forward. I thought he lost that fight. You can make a case that he lost the Andy Ruiz fight, and Andy Ruiz isn't anything special. He's okay. Parker was a very intriguing prospect a few years ago. I think he stalled. I think he doesn't fight with the same confidence that he did. I think he's in between styles at times. I think it's the type of guy where on a given night, perhaps he puts things together. I don't like how he's coached. It's a shame. I was really high on him. I wrote an article a couple years ago about 4 or 5 heavyweights that I was keeping my eye on. And Parker was really one at that point in time who I found most impressive. But I have to say he's deteriorated in my eyes. And he doesn't bring a lot of money. He's from New Zealand. He doesn't have a lot of name recognition. He is just a guy. Until he beats somebody good and has a definitive performance, he is just a guy. Do you see him differently than that?
No, I really don't. I just see him as a guy. I look at him as being maybe 2 or 3 notches above David Price, who a lot of us were really high on at one time as well, but showed he was quite chitty. I really just think he's a couple levels above that with a better chin. So, I mean, kind of take that for what it's worth. That's really disrespectful to Parker. All right, I take the David Price back.
Let me ask you this question then. Who in the division, I mean, we obviously know the top 2 guys. Is there anybody else in the division right now that particularly interests you or that, you're really intrigued by? Or is this really just 2 guys kind of positioning and jockeying themselves until they fight? Are there possible other people that intrigue you, that you're into, that you think, could be legitimate threats?
There are 2, and one of them is Dylan White. I do want to see more of him. I'm kind of intrigued by him and see his growth as a fighter. I think his potential to be something good and something special. I mean, the loss against Anthony Joshua was one of those I'm not going to completely always hold over his head. But the second name, I'm probably going to catch some grief with, but you just don't know with this one because of the drug testing, is Alexander Povetkin. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of those guys that we know he's a good fighter, but he's juiced. If he's ever in a proper drug testing program, and he's consistently being tested, what kind of fighter is he going to be? So I know he's going to be able to get back. He's going to be fighting in Russia. He's also going to be able to reapply to be put back in the WBC rankings here in the corresponding weeks and months. So, I mean, he's one of those guys. He's kind of interesting, but I don't know if anyone is going to touch him given the fact of his track record. Who's going to want to make a big fight with him, and you do all this promotion and planning, and then he shits the bed by failing a drug test.
Yeah.
So that's a very intriguing opponent there. Yeah.
That fight a couple years ago with Wilder, I mean, would have been a really interesting fight. I mean, that was, to many people's eyes, close to a 50-50 fight. I think how often he's failed tests calls into question his kind of late power surge when he was knocking out Takam and he was having those really impressive knockouts all of a sudden. Because I remember watching him against Eddie Chambers years ago, and I remember watching him against Marco Huck and, watch the Klitschko fight. And, he's like a solid guy. He puts a couple punches together. He was well-schooled, not very active. I never saw him as having huge one-punch power. And all of a sudden, he was just ending guys left and right. So I don't know if the power is real. I really don't. This is a scenario where I am skeptical. I'm not going to dismiss him completely. He is intriguing because we just don't know how good he is. It's like if Tyson Fury comes back. We just don't know. I mean, you can't dismiss Tyson Fury out of hand. He has talent. I think Peter Fury, his trainer, is fantastic. we just don't know psychologically if Tyson or physically if Tyson Fury is going to be in the fight. But yeah, nobody was going to dismiss him. I will take issue with Dillian Whyte. I just don't. I've seen a couple of his fights. He's nothing more than a B minus guy. He doesn't have real power. I don't think he throws a good right hand. He has a good chin, I think, even though he was knocked out eventually by Joshua. I just don't. I don't see how he's going to get to that next level. He's a guy. He's a durable guy. That I think is a really good opponent for up and coming fighters. I just don't see any first class tools that he has. Could he beat Joseph Parker or something like that? It's possible. I mean, I don't want to dismiss him. I just don't see him in that real top level.
I mean, and that's a shame. That's kind of where we're at right now, Adam. And we got more guys that we're just questioning.
It's a week to listen. Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
We have no idea. It's a shame because we got all these names but we don't know. We got the top two, and then we're like, it's a kind of a crapshoot. We really don't know what else we have beyond these two guys. So I really want to see the rest of the division that we say. I want to see them kind of pit it out with each other and fight in 2018 because, these guys, Joshua and Wilder are going to need opponents at some juncture if they don't fight each other. Let's do a process of elimination and fight each other. Now, Adam, we do have some callers on the line. Do we want to talk to them about the heavyweight division?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing real fast. Is that, I agree with you. I think, a Jarrell Miller, Big Baby Miller, Dillian Whyte fight is fun. I mean, I'm not, those are some fun fights. Yes. I don't know how, great they are, but that's fun. And I'm all for that. I think that'd be fun.
Absolutely. Now, we got our first caller calling in here from the Pensacola area. They're calling from Tallahassee or Pensacola. You never know. It could be Roy Jones Jr. calling in. I don't know if he's a fan of the show, but a caller from the 805. You're live here on Punch to the Face Radio.
Y'all must have forgot. I'm just kidding. Just kidding there, man. Good evening to Brandon and Adam. Good evening to the Punch to the Face Radio crew. Shout out to SN Boxing. How y'all doing?
Good. What's your
we're going to do it, man.
This is JR, man. I'm part of that SN Boxing group. How you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, just wanted to get in on the heavyweight talk, and y'all brought up some good points about who else is out there in the heavyweight division right now. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jarrell Big Baby Miller does this Saturday against Marius Watt to see if he'll get himself or keep himself in contention to get in those bigger fights. Y'all did mention Dillian Whyte. He did have a recent fight and didn't look all too hot in that particular fight as well. And y'all did touch on Joseph Parker. And, I agree in reference to Parker. I'm not, all too impressed with him. Haven't been impressed with him over his past 3 fights, even with, his title win that he got for the WBO title. It wasn't very impressive. So it's just, to me, only a matter of time to where, Parker basically is out of the picture. I think he's, trying to get in line to have a unification fight, but he wouldn't be favored against Joshua or against Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So do you think, in your opinion, do you see this fight, Joshua Wilder, happening in 2018? What's your sense of it?
Yeah, I think it will happen in 2018. There really isn't, much else out there right now. I mean, y'all have talked about the state of the heavyweight division. And so, I just don't see where, much of any other fights make sense, for Wilder or Joshua, with the exception of Parker in a unification, than for them to, go up against each other. I mean, Hearn has basically pointed that out multiple times. He said that, they wanted to, have that fight 9 to 12 months from now, but, the situations and the demand for the fight, say otherwise. So they want to push to have it by the summer months of 2018. And I'm, completely confident that that's what's going to happen.
Well, I like your optimism. I really do. I'm slightly less optimistic. I'm not in that category where it's not going to happen, but I'm on the fence. I see it both ways. I think there's a route where Joshua could get 1 or 2 big fights next year without going through Wilder. So it could happen. It could not happen. I really hope it does. I want your optimism, JR. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I think the of course the wild card is Tyson Fury, but I mean that's the only thing is that what condition will Tyson Fury be in by the time 2018 by March 2018 rolls around. They say that he's currently in a back and forth with the with that organization that he might end up suing them in reference to what happened to him over the past couple of years or so. But even with that, but even with that, you still have to have like something to where you're in a physical condition to perform at a high level to go after these big fights against Anthony Joshua or anybody else. And we're not so sure that Fury is going to be, at that point right now. Or at least I'm not that confident that he could reach that level.
Yeah.
Agreed. I definitely want to, Fury is the linchpin that we got to just kind of wait and see if he comes back, if he's licensed to come back, how he looks when he comes back, if he's even mentally fit to come back. I don't want him pulling an Oliver McCall and crying in the middle of the ring when he does come back. So if he's going to come back, we need him to come back right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, JR, thanks for calling in. We really appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
All right, Adam, we got one more who's on the line, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring him on. I've heard from him in a couple weeks, man. The one and only Mike Money. Mike, I know you're going to bring the heat and you're going to roast somebody. Welcome back here to Punch the Face Radio, my brother.
Brother Brandon, Brother Adam, what's going on? No roaster tonight, man. I'm just enjoying the show as always. How you fellas doing?
Good, Mike.
Oh,
How
man,
are you?
we appreciate the love.
Oh, yeah. Am I optimistic about a Joshua Wilder, Deontay Wilder fight in 2018? No, I think it's going to happen earliest. I think earliest is going to be early 2019. And Adam just alluded to it. He could get 1 or 2 big fights without Wilder because he's obviously, as we all know, he's the bigger draw. And you heard what Eddie Hearn said. He has to go out to England anyway. So here's the way I see it playing out. And then you just mentioned Tyson Fury, which is also a linchpin. I see it playing out. I see a unification between Parker and Wilder happening probably maybe April 2018 at the Barclays Center, hopefully, so he can get that other belt. And then, Wilder takes, Joshua takes a couple more fights out in England. Then, when the dust settles, I say March or April 2019. That's when they're going to get it on. And hopefully how they do it is similar to how they do it with Ward and Kovalev. Kovalev fought 1 week, and then I believe 2 weeks after that, Ward fought, and then. So there's no real big time separation between the fights, and then from there, March or April 2019, they go at it, and dust settles, they go at it in 2019. I don't see them really fighting each other in 2018 at all.
Wow, I think if anything, if we see it, it's going to be maybe fourth quarter 2018 if we get it next year. I'm a little bit more. I'm holding out hope because money talks, and if the money is going to be there, I think it's going to be there towards the back half of the year. I think both guys are going to have to fight one more fight to really generate even more revenue for the bout. But if I think we're going to see it fourth quarter of 2018 if it happens next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would be perfectly fine if Wilder fights Parker, and becomes a unified champion. The issue with Wilder's people is, do they risk that fight? I mean, you're believing in your guy. If Wilder wins that fight, he's worth a lot more. He generates a lot more buzz. But Parker, I mean, I don't think Parker is a great fighter, but it's clear to me that Parker is Wilder's best opponent. And if Parker's chin can hold up, he may have a chance to win that fight. So it's a very risky proposition, but that's betting on your guy. If you believe in your guy, you make that fight. If you're saying, no, we want the money, I don't think you make the fight. So it's very interesting, Michael, to see how they decide to go in the future with that.
Now, Adam, now Now look at it like this. Before, I mean, you're absolutely right. Wilder was about to fight Povetkin in Russia when a lot of people thought that was a 50-50 fight, and we obviously we knew what happened. He was taking a risk there. And then with Luis Ortiz, another big heavyweight, another 50-50 fight, he was about to take the risk there. I see it when I saw this past Saturday night. I saw a Wilder that I haven't seen. I mean that hunger and that's something inside of him. He wants Joshua bad, and if he feels as though he has to go through Parker to get Joshua, I think at this point I know we all want Joshua Wilder. I want it too bad because I'm tired of fights simmering and marinating and never happens. Actually, we can all name countless fights that happened and didn't happen. So I just feel as though, to your point, Adam and Brandon, Parker, I think that fight should happen. Then from there, take one more, have one more title defense, and then hopefully, to your point, Brandon, I'm hoping end of 2018, but I really see beginning of 2019 as finally we get the dust settled, hopefully.
Absolutely. It's very intriguing.
All right, well, Mike, man, I appreciate you chiming in. Don't be a stranger. It's been a couple weeks, man. I was kind of wondering about you, man. So never be a stranger here to Punch the Face Radio. You know you have a home here. You know your family. Appreciate you always chiming in and supporting the movement, my brother.
Good to hear from you,
doubt,
Mike.
man. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Brandon. Punch to the Face Radio. I'm out.
Great.
All right, man. The one and only Mike Money. Appreciate the love and the undying support here of the program. Now, we're going to kind of shift gears here a little bit because there's something else that's kind of agitating me a little bit. And Adam, it doesn't agitate Adam as much, but it agitates me. So another fight that actually happened here on Saturday was Shawn Porter versus Adrian Granados. That was the co-feature of the night there on Showtime. It was a welterweight bout that really did nothing for either one's career, truth be told. I would have really helped out Granados if he won, but let's face it, Granados always loses these fights. And guess what? He lost this one that he thought he won on the cards yet again. Now, I will say a couple of different things here in regards to the fight. One, Shawn Porter was completely in control until he broke his hand. Two, I am really sick of hearing Adrian Granados and this tough luck story about, I got robbed. I should have won this fight. I got robbed. Bro, you just got to start knocking people out. It comes to a certain point in time where you just got to say, F it, throw caution to the wind and say, either I'm going to knock you out or I'm going to get knocked out. I didn't enjoy the fight. It wasn't really aesthetically pleasing to me. I honestly stopped watching the fight the last 4 rounds. I started getting my Sunday dinner put in the crock pot, so I actually missed it when Porter broke his hand. But now Shawn Porter is the mandatory for Keith Thurman. So now this brings us to our subject in regards to this. For starters, Adam, what did you think of the performance from both these fighters here on Saturday night? And two, this rematch with Keith Thurman, is this something we really need or want right now in boxing?
All right, first of all, I'm tired of Granados as well. It was absolutely ridiculous for him to claim that he won the fight. I mean, he won 3 rounds. If you're being really generous, he won 4 rounds. I have no idea. Yes, he landed on Shawn Porter at times, but he got his ass kicked most of the fight. Honestly, he did. He's had a lot of fights that were close. He could have won a few. He could have lost a few. It's like the Bruner fight. Yeah, he could have possibly won it, but you know what? He could have lost it too. It's not like he's dominating guys and getting robbed. He's losing 50-50 fights, okay? And yes, on a certain level, he's a good fighter, but you hit the nail on the head. You know what? If you want to stop complaining, separate yourself from these guys. It may not be knocking out, but you know what? Fucking dominate them. Obviously, what you're doing is not working. Okay, so, and listen, if he would have just said, hey, you know what, I've had some close fights before, but Shawn Porter was the better man tonight, I've been fine with that. I've been fine with that. But for him to say he controlled the fight, what the fuck fight was he in? I mean, he was getting hit all over the fight. No, I mean, seriously. Like, Porter's left hand across the ropes, he was hitting Granados at will. I'm amazed Granados didn't go down. I mean, he really took a fucking beating early in that fight. And it offends us. It offends us as boxing fans. Now, sometimes people say things in the heat of the moment. I'm not going to say Granados is a terrible person, blah, 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 fine. It's just that was so ridiculous. I'm also upset with you, Brandon, because like the Porters, before we talk about the Porters, we should have a slow music, like we're doing a slow dance, like Kenny and Shawn Porter. They're about to start their fight. They have a nice moment together. We should experience a nice moment together. So in the future, when we're about to talk about Shawn Porter, we might have to fire up a nice, like, 80s ballad. Just a few bars, because I feel like that's the way to get into the Shawn Porter flow.
Or maybe after the show, you slowly hold my hand as we walk backstage. That was the creepiest thing I'd seen in a long time. Like, the way he was holding Shawn's hand as they walk back. You know, I've said it before. I think that's something so weird there, and I've witnessed it for myself with my own eyes. Kenny's a very overprotective father of Shawn Porter. I get it. You're very protective of your son. That's your meal ticket. But, bro, it gets kind of creepy. I got to tell you. I got to tell you something about Porter, though. I like Porter. I really do. I have fun. Like, I don't understand why more people don't like him. And I made this point. Like, if he was Mexican, people would fucking love him. I don't understand it. Like, he's this, like, ridiculous go-for-broke inside pressure fighter who knows what he's doing. He's extremely athletic. His fights are rough. I don't see the difference between him. I mean, I think he's a better fighter than a guy like Salido has become this, like, you know, folk hero over the years. It's very odd to me. I think people are in a box with fighters. So Shawn Porter had the amateur background. He's supposed to be this kind of like slick boxer puncher, but he's not. He's become this like goon, and he's fantastic at what he does. And maybe that style isn't for everybody. So be it. But I don't understand the people that love pressure fighters, and they're like, well, we don't like Shawn Porter. But we love Brandon Rios, and Porter's better than whatever Rios was. I just don't understand it. It's very strange to me. It's like, okay, it's not like he sucks. I mean, he put on a really good fight with Keith Thurman. It was a close fight. Keith Thurman won 115-113. I know people out of respect had that fight a draw or had Porter winning. He fought Brook very competitively. He lost those two fights. You know what? He's a good fighter. He's a very good fighter. I don't understand why people rip on him. Yeah, he wrestles a little bit. You know what? A lot of fighters do. But he lands hard shots. He really wants to win. He has a lot of subtle things that he does in close. He has really good footwork. I'm serious. Like, I've actually talked to people who are like, Porter has no skill. Like, actually, he has a ton of skill. If you look at how many shots he evades coming in and out, like, he has a lot of skill. He's extremely athletic the way he turns fighters. I really enjoy him. This guy wants to, like, kick people's ass. I don't understand it, why people don't like him as much. Can you educate me? Because I know you're not on board Porter like I am. So tell me. Yeah, give me a little bit. I don't know if it's so much the style. I know for me, what I find annoying is the constant smiling. I don't trust any man who smiles, a lot. And I've gotten this argument before with Michelle Rosario. Shout out to Raging Babe. And all of her examples, she said of people who smiled a lot in boxing were bad examples. She said Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Ray Leonard. I'm like, well, Oscar was a cokehead, and Sugar Ray later came out and said he was touched by a coach when he was younger. These are bad examples. Like, these don't help your argument. But, and I'm kind of thinking the same thing with Shawn. His dad is very overprotective, very weird relationship there. As far as the style goes, pressure fighters, you put the analogy, if he was Mexican, people would love him. The sad part is, you're right, because we would look at him as being a Mexican warrior who's going out on a shield. His style is just it's so brazen, it's so aggressive that people don't typically look at that and expect that from an African-American fighter. I think that sometimes just throw people for a loop, like, whoa, what the hell are we watching? They're kind of taken aback by that because they're not used to seeing that style. And I think that's one of those things that unfortunately kind of plays as a disadvantage to him, because we're not expecting that coming from that body and that skin tone. Now, that's not to say take anything away from him as far as his skill set goes, because like you said, he's shown that he can box when he needs to. He can rough people up when he needs to. It's just I just can't put a single finger on it, but I kind of do think It's that we see a style from him that we're not expecting to see. We want to see more boxing out of him instead of this coming in with my head and I'm just going to just rush straight forward towards you. It sometimes to people, especially the casuals, it can be a turnoff seeing that style. But I will say this, he definitely brings the best out of his opponents, and he tries to test them and push them to their limits like we saw in that Keith Thurman fight earlier this year. Well, that was not earlier this year. It was last year when they fought.
Last year.
Last year when they fought. So, I mean, you see that. He helps. He's going to pressure you to where you're going to have to take it up another notch if you want to be elite, if you want to be great. So from that aspect, I have nothing but respect for him. But it's just sometimes that style is just so hard to watch. And I want to see someone wrestling and just all of that sometimes can just be such a turnoff when you want to see action and you're not seeing action. You're seeing more clinching and more just kind of dirty fighting, if you will.
Like I don't think Shawn Porter is the same type of fighter that Aaron Pryor was, but Aaron Pryor had that like swarming style too, that really athletic, rough, physical. You know, Pryor was a fantastic junior welterweight in the early 80s and fantastic career. And he had those memorable fights with Alexis Arguello. And I hear what you're saying about the style. And frankly, it's not like, you know, could Porter be better at it in some ways? Yes. I mean, I thought Porter's best performance was against Broner because I thought he took it down a notch. It wasn't just him being a whirling dervish. It was where he boxed and then found moments to like outwork Broner on the inside. I thought that was more controlled, and I thought that was one of his. I thought that was one of his better performances. And you know, plus you know, Porter was brought in. You know, he was weight drained down to 145 in that fight. I mean, he was the beast. He was brought in to lose. I mean, not brought in to lose, but I mean, Broner was the A side there, and they wanted him to win. I will tell you this. Once Porter hurt his hand for good in the 10th round, there were some distressing things in that fight. He spent the last 2 rounds literally running and holding. Literally. Now, maybe he thought he was up big, which he was, or maybe he was unused to hurting his hand, being in pain. He said after the fight, this is the first time he ever really hurt something before. Maybe he didn't have that experience. But I got to tell you, the body language wasn't good. Now, some people are like, well, he's 30. Maybe he can't go 12 rounds anymore. Who knows what it is? I'm just going to tell you, those last 2 rounds looked bad, Brandon. I'm not going to read more into it. There was somebody that was trying to pick an argument with me, saying that Porter was looking for a way out of the fight, that he was mentally defeated. And the example I like to give is, you remember that first Pacquiao fight with Morales, when Pacquiao gets cut and it affected him and Morales winds up winning the fight? So people are like, oh, well, Pacquiao is mentally weak. Well, what did Pacquiao do in the rematch? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think people read into this a little too much. I can't say it's a pattern yet. I can't tell you Porter's mentally weak or he can't fight if something's going wrong. I'm just telling you those last 2 rounds did not look good at all.
So this now leads us to what's next for him. Now, he did state him and his father have decided that he's going to set out. He's not going to take another bout until he gets his Keith Thurman fight. The problem with that is this. Keith Thurman has made it abundantly clear his next fight is going to be a tune-up fight. He's going to fight a lesser fighter just to see how he physically feels after the elbow surgery. So, you know, Keith Thurman's made it clear. He's like, yeah, I'm not fighting anyone elite. I'm going to fight a kid. So there's that. The other thing is with that is Keith Thurman knows, and he's looking across at Earl Spence, who's daring to be great. He wants a big fight. That could be something that's looming. So then what happens? You know, the sanctioning bodies are going to more than likely agree upon a unification bout before they force Keith Thurman into a mandatory defense against Shawn Porter in a rematch. Where does that leave Shawn Porter? Are you literally going to just set out and just say, I'm not doing anything?
Well, let's put timetables together. And that's a very good point you're making. I think Porter is probably hurt after this fight, and he may not want to fight, you know, think about fighting for 3, 4, 5 months anyway. I mean, he might be out of the gym that long because he's hurt.
True.
He might be okay. So let's put timelines together. Let's say Thurman said he's ready to come back in January or February. Maybe that's early March. Let's say he fights first quarter. It's going to be the tune-up, okay? Now, Earl Spence is going to be fighting in January against Lamont Peterson. That puts the two of them in line for a unification bout. If it happens, let's say September, okay? Let's say, because, Heyman's not having his guys fight 3 times a year. So let's say that's September. I'm serious. I'm serious. I mean, so let's say September of 2018. So is Porter going to be sitting out 10 months for that unification fight? I think what eventually is going to happen is Thurman will wind up giving that WBC belt up, or he'll be elevated to super champion, and I think Porter will become some type of regular champion under him, or he'll fight for a vacant title. I don't think that rematch is going to happen. I think you're right. Thurman-Spence is the bigger fight. I think that's more enticing to boxing fans. I wouldn't be upset with a Porter rematch. I like the first fight, but you're right. Fresh matchup, bigger matchup, that's the direction they should go. I think Porter eventually gets a shot at either a vacant title or an interim or regular title, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's already the silver WBC champion, so I forget that we have all these. We have a silver, we have a gold, we have a interim, we have a super champion. We have, WBC just likes to create belts. Ask Canelo how that works out for him.
So there's a way to make Porter happy. I'm not that he's going to get the big fight, but he'll have a chance, I think, to fight for the belt. And it wouldn't surprise me if Thurman winds up giving up one of his belts. So it's still going to be a unification fight because I think Thurman has 2 belts right now. So, he's going to fight with one, and then Spence will have one, and then I think, Porter will wind up getting that vacant one somewhere down the line.
Well, I'll just state this as we tie a bow up on the welterweight division. It won't matter. By end of 2018, Terrence Crawford's going to take any and everyone's soul. I do believe he is pound for pound number 1. Shout out to Lomachenko. I never want to disrespect him and leave him out of the number 1 talk. But Terrence Crawford's number 1, and if he's given the opportunity, I don't see much at 147. The Errol Spence fight is one we're looking at. That's going to be the only guy I see giving him any sort of issues at 147 going into 2018. So everyone, hold tight to your belts until Terrence Crawford gets that opportunity, and then them shit is gone.
The thing is this, it's like, I agree with you if he gets the opportunity. That's a huge, we could have a show on that, if that fight could happen and why not. I don't think a Thurman fight is a walk in the park whatsoever for Errol Spence. If I were to create a type of opponent that could give Errol Spence a lot of problems, Thurman would be fairly close. So I'm not ready to make a prediction if that fight happens. I'm saying, that is not an easy fight. People forget just how inexperienced Spence is in professional boxing. And he looked great finishing off Brook at the end of that fight. He did not look great at the beginning of that fight. And Thurman has proven to be very durable, not physically out of the ring, but in ring, going 12 rounds, taking shots. I don't think there's a guarantee that Spence wins the fight. I don't look at that. I respect Keith Thurman a lot. I respect Spence a lot. And I think people look at that and be like, oh, Earl Spence easily. I think that's close to a 50-50 fight in my opinion.
Well, I'm going to sound really bad when I say this, but he's coming off an injury and he's now gotten married. Keith Thurman's career is done, okay? He's married. His career is done. He's officially washed. So, I mean, and in all honesty, if we see him go downhill in 2018, I want everyone to just kind of think back when he got married here this year and just think, wow, Keith Thurman seems so much different prior to his marriage. You can either blame injury or you can blame his marriage. But I honestly, God, don't think we're going to see a elite Keith Thurman going forward. I just have a feeling that what we've seen from him, I think he's already reached his peak. And I think it's just going to be downhill from here. Not to say he can't beat guys still, but I just don't see him being elite at 147. I hope he proves me wrong because he's done so great things here in the division. But I just really kind of wonder about him as far as his mental psyche, physically. I just wonder, does he dare to be great? Because it doesn't seem like he really wants to be there.
Let me ask you that, because obviously there are many fighters that have been married that have been fantastic. I mean, we could go over all of the fighters in boxing history who were married. I mean, so I know you don't mean that, but you're talking about Keith in particular. Like, there's something about him in particular that you think after he's gotten married, like, I mean, he's been hurt the whole time, so it's tough to say what marriage has done to him. So I guess I'm trying to figure out. Go ahead.
We all know, though, Keith's a different kind of dude. I mean, and I think everybody in boxing would agree with that. He's just a different kind of dude. And with him being so different, I kind of wonder how marriage is going to change him. Kind of similar. I'm going to kind of look at it from this end of the spectrum. Kind of different from when Manny Pacquiao had marital issues. If you think before that, Manny Pacquiao was an absolute killer. He was destroying everyone. Had marital issues, guess what? He stopped turning into being the killer in the ring that he was. He somehow found Jesus. He stopped knocking people out. I'm just saying, those different ends of the spectrum, people, when things like that, Pacquiao had other issues as well, but... Yeah,
there are other variables as well. I mean, they test extremely rigorously now.
So I've heard.
Yeah, so, yes, I hear what you're saying, but, yeah. Listen, I like Thurman. I've had a chance to meet him. Obviously, Spence is somebody who I give a shit about. I went to England to go see that fight. Not to go see that fight. I happened to be there, but I've changed my whole vacation around to see that Spence fight against Brook, and I don't regret a second of that. And if he fights, I might go see Spence fight Lamont Peterson in January if it's going to be in New York. So I'm very excited about his future. I hope these big fights happen. I think Shawn Porter is going to be the one left holding the bag. It's just the way it is. And, Porter has a year or two left probably in this style, in this division, to make whatever he's going to make. You know, you just don't see him moving up with his body type to be a huge force at 154. I just, because he's small at 147. I mean, he's wide, he's a football player, and he's muscular. But, I mean, he overcomes such height disadvantages at 147. It's going to be even worse at 154. So he has probably 1 or 2 more years making weight, still fighting the way that he does to make the most. So I hope he gets one more big shot, whoever it might be. And listen, he was a champion. He had an impressive upset victory over Devin Alexander. He destroyed Paulie Malignaggi. He always competed. There's nothing in his career to be embarrassed or ashamed about. He's had a very good career. I just think that, he had that opportunity against Thurman. I'm not sure if he gets that other big opportunity in 2018. It may be, I think he gets one more shot at a big fight. I just don't see where it is or who it's going to be against.
Well, that's a good transition now into our next subject. Talking about big 2018s, we could have that in light heavyweight going forward in 2018. And I know I'm horrible with names. Dmitry Bivol. Am I not saying that right? Bivol. Okay.
Bivol.
So Dmitry Bivol, he made his his HBO debut, if you will. Now, granted, he's been on some undercards that have been on HBO pay-per-views, but this was his showcase bout here over in Monte Carlo this past weekend. 1-round knockout over Trent Broadhurst in front of a crowd of 400 really rich people and Tyson Fury. I was not impressed. It was kind of a ho-hum performance. I am like, whatever. But, it did what it was supposed to do. It gave HBO an opportunity to shove him down our throats and hype him to no end. What did you think of Dimitri's debut as being one of the HBO's new stars at 175?
First of all, a moment, because there are at least 6 hardcore, diehard Trent Broadhurst fans around the world that are still aching today. So let us just remember that all 6 of them have had a very tough week. So we will try and empathize with you and try to not use as many bad epithets about your favorite fighter as we could. But I will say this. Well, the guy knocked him out with a massive right hand and in the first round, and you're like, well, that did nothing for me. I mean, it was a fucking amazing punch. I mean, he just fucking ended the dude. I don't know what did you want him to, do some circus tricks afterwards? Fly through
it just seemed very anticlimactic for me. I mean, it was like he was kind of just seemed like he was going through the motions in the fight, and then he hit him, and it's like it's over. That it just was one of those things like, wow, it's over. It didn't seem like, you know.
I gotta say, the event was.
He didn't like bang away at him, and then like.
Yeah,
it was just one of those things like we knew it was going to happen. It's just like, oh, you go down from that. Okay, whatever, and then the fight was over.
That was one of the. I mean, that was Trent Broadhurst. The Trent Broadhurst era is over. He's a terrible opponent.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he just. Yeah, anybody can get iced, you know, but nobody thought he was going to win. I don't exactly know why HBO had to fly over for that fight. It was kind of inexplicable to me. It was a late afternoon show. It was not going to be a good fight. They had no other fight on the card. It was a very strange set of decisions for me to understand why they did that. I mean, I don't care. Some of the hardcore heads are really big into Bivol. He has real power. He has a good amateur background. He's going to be one of those guys in a factor that's in a very exciting light heavyweight division. So he's definitely one to watch. I don't know why they bought this fight. I'm never going to, say show me less boxing, but we could have survived if this wasn't on TV.
Oh, Eddie Hearn. That's I can tell you that. That's all Eddie Hearn's doing with HBO. That's all ties in there in regards to that. Now, he won and Dmitry won. And one thing that they just kept on talking about, like, he could rule 175 going into 2018. I think we would agree that, light heavyweight may be the most wide open division there is, thanks to Andre Ward retiring. We got titles that are vacated. We've got guys dropping other belts so they don't have to fight other guys. We have some matchups that are being made for some of these vacant titles. We'll talk about Artur Beterbiev here in a little bit. We've got now, Adonis Stevenson actually going to fight Badu Jack in a fight that I absolutely love. But,
has that fight been confirmed?
It's been confirmed. The venue's not locked down, but it's going to be January 27th. Somewhere I'm assuming it's going to be in Canada. I don't see Adonis Stevenson going to Vegas, but stranger things have happened. So if it's not in Canada,
I heard that was rumored. I don't know. It was supposed to be Leader Alvarez, who was his mandatory for years, and he's just stepped aside one fight after another. It was the same promoter, and they treated him like crap. I heard that Jack was a possibility. I didn't see that it was finalized. But either way, if that happens, it's a great fight. But to your larger point, this is a great division right now. You have, Jack, Beterbiev, Alvarez, Bivol. You have Stevenson. You have Kovalev. You have Gvozdyk. You have a lot of Sullivan Barrera, who can be a problem for a lot of guys. You have a lot of good fighters. I mean, you could do a tournament easily. Even somebody like Marcus Brown, could be a lesser factor, but he's an interesting guy. I mean, you can make 8 or 9 or 10 guys that have a shot at the top of this division, and you have a real mixture of styles. I really love this division. I really do. Light heavyweight has not been a consistently good division for a long time. It's been very thin. This is probably the deepest the division has been in 15, 20 years. I mean, it's tough to even say because Jones was dominating. Let's put it this way. It's the deepest this division has been in a long, long, long time. I love it right now. You have people on different sides of the street promotionally and on networks. So I don't know if we're going to find an overall winner in 2018. But I do know that Kovalev is in the mix, fighting later this month. I do know that Bivol is on HBO, and that is good. So maybe they fight at some point. Sullivan Barrera is, I think, was going to be a mandatory from Bivol, and I think that's probably going to be the fight next. So you have an opportunity of these big fights being made. I mean, if Jack Stevenson happens, that's a great fight. So we're going to see some clarity in this division. It's an exciting division. Almost everybody has power there. There's very few cuties. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about 175 pounds right now. Is there one guy? I mean, the established guys we know. We know Stevenson. We know Kovalev. But who are you keeping your eye on at 175? Who's the guy for you? You're like, you know what? This might be the guy.
I honestly want to say Sullivan Barrera. I mean, his lone loss is to Andre Ward. So, I mean, and that's not really a bad loss. I mean, Sergey Govalev's long losses are to Andre Ward. So I think Sullivan Barrera is a guy who may have enough of a mixture of power and boxing to get the job done. But I also want to say Badu Jack is a guy who I got to say over the last, 2 years has really just come along. And I know people are going to disagree with this because some people are just huge fans of Gervonta Davis. But I look at Badu Jack as being the number one fighter in Mayweather Promotions. I think Badu Jack embodies everything. He took a loss. He built himself back up to become a champion again. And I just really respect that. And he just goes out. He's willing to fight anyone. So yeah. I look at those two guys as being, and really they're on two different sides of the street. So really in this case we could pick two different guys. You know, Badu Jack over on the Showtime, Al Heyman side of things. You have Barrera, who's on the HBO side of things. I think those are the two guys who are going to have an opportunity to have breakout years. Really, Barrera having more of a breakout year in 2018, and Badu Jack establishing himself as being one of the best boxers there is in the world. I think if he were to beat Adonis Stevenson and beat him handily next year, we're going to start throwing his name out there in pound-for-pound talks amongst the top 10. I think he could really have that sort of impact with the win. I think that highly of him. But, you know, I also have to say this, and I would be remiss. I know I'm going to get shitted on by you for saying this. I don't know what he has left. I don't. But Chad Dawson
don't, Brandon.
I got to say it. I got to say it here for the show.
Brandon,
I'm a fan. I want to see him succeed. I want to see him succeed, but do I see him being a champion again? No. Do I see him possibly getting in one of these big fights down the road next year? It's crazier things have happened. He's a Heyman fighter. So with a win or two, they could throw him in there with somebody just because. And
Brandon's talking about
a good or a bad thing.
I talked to her.
It's so I don't know. But I always had to throw his name in the mix because I've said one time I thought he would be champion again. It still hasn't happened, but I will not give up hope. I still believe. I have to have some level of confidence. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. I've been disappointed for years. I'm a Chad Dawson fan. I've been disappointed for the last few years. I still hold faith that both will put a smile in my heart before I leave this earth at some juncture in my lifetime.
Can I ask a serious question? How does one become a Chad Dawson fan? Like what happened? What fight could you possibly have seen where you're like, I love this guy? Was it how he ran from Glenn Johnson? He did a fantastic job running from Glenn Johnson. Well, I mean, at what point were you like, I love this guy. This guy I connect with. How does a big Chad Dawson fan get me? Please tell me.
You have to understand, like this was when he was actually being shown on HBO and we were seeing these fights, you know, the prior to the Glenn Johnson fight, the Thomas Adamek fight, the Tarver fights. The Glenn Johnson fight, well, I will say, you know, was not the most aesthetically pleasing. But, you know, he showed that he could box. He could knock guys out. He was being brought up the proper way by Gary Shaw Promotions. So we saw him he was a mixture. And we really thought he was going to be a great fighter. You know, Floyd Mayweather at one time he said he's pound for pound one of the best fighters there is in the world. And then he fought Andre Ward, and Andre Ward took his soul. And his soul has never came back. Now, maybe Andre Ward's retired, and all those souls that Andre Ward snatched and broke these people's minds, maybe they get released now that Andre Ward is retired. Maybe he can have a second wind. I know he's on like his 17th trainer, but you never know with Chad Dawson. The inconsistencies may be the biggest problem of his career, has been one of his biggest faults. But I've always respected his style. I got a chance to see him fight Antonio Tarver in that first fight there in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock. And I don't know. I've just been a fan since. It's weird. I know. I have a lot of weird people I cheer for. You know, I was at one time a Vic Darchinyan fan, and when he got his soul snatched, and still fights, and it's kind of sad. Roy Jones Jr. fan, still fights, really sad. So we kind of see a consistency with all the guys I cheer for that still fight, and it's really sad. I'm glad Miguel Cotto's calling it a career here next month, so he's not still fighting and it becomes sad. So, yeah, I don't know. Adam, I'm a weird guy. I don't know if you figured that out by now.
I got to say this. There are a lot of podcasts that are out there. There's dozens, 20, scores of podcasts, boxing podcasts. I guarantee you, and this is a credit to us, I guarantee you not one boxing podcast has talked about Chad Dawson for as long as we have this week. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And it's only Wednesday. Nobody's going to beat us. All right? So it's like, for those people that wanted to have their Chad Dawson talk, you came to the right place tonight. You're Punch in Face Radio. We move your night. You're welcome. Okay? You're welcome.
We make dreams happen.
Right now, I can't. All right, move on.
Let's move on. Let's maybe transition here into Top Rank on ESPN, since we were. Since we're gonna have Arturo Beterbiev, he's gonna be fighting for one of those vacant belts that was relinquished by Andre Ward. I gotta say this, a lot of the boxing world, especially the light heavyweight division, they really need to make sure they send a Christmas ham, a Hickory Farms basket to Andre Ward, because he's going to make a lot of people champions. They probably never would have been because he's retired. And, Arturo Beterbiev is actually one of those guys who now falls into that category. He's going to be facing, I know I'm probably going to mispronunciate this,
Enrico
Cooling. Cooling, yeah. And I got to give ESPN a little bit of credit. I watch a lot of ESPN while I'm at work. I watch it on my tablet. Shout out to the ESPN app. They have been showing commercials for this fight in nausea on television this week. So I got to give them their credit for properly promoting this. The weird thing is I don't remember seeing the same amount of commercials for Terrence Crawford's fight. Terrence Crawford, you have a point. I'll just leave it at that. We'll go on. But Beterbiev Cooling is going to be probably a one-sided beating. Do you see anything different in regards to that fight for that IBF strap?
No, over in 4 rounds. Beterbiev is a really talented guy, huge power. He's been out of the ring, had some injuries, had some promotional problems. You know what's interesting? Like, he's actually suing his old promoter, Yvon Michel, who's the same guy who promotes Stevenson and Alvarez, by the way, in Canada. So somehow they made a deal. Top Rank comes in, doesn't promote either fighter, and wins a purse bid, which is, you don't see that a lot, where the third party comes in, wins a purse bid. That's how they have this fight. So at the same time, Beterbiev is suing his old promoter, and hopefully that gets resolved late this year, early 2018, or else Beterbiev is going to be in promotional limbo for a while. So he's trying to get his release. He's able to fight here on this Top Rank card. He's going to win this fight. There's no doubt in my mind. He is 4 rounds at the most, but I hope it's not another year or 18 months until we see him again. That's the fear. That's the concern.
Yeah, promotional issues are something that deflate a lot of fighters' careers. This will actually be his first fight in 11 months. He last fought December of last year when he fought up in Canada. He won via TKO. Beterbiev is one of those kind of interesting guys to where we see the skill set, but we've yet to see him get challenged by a top-tier guy or his next tier of guys at 175. This week won't be any different. I agree. If it lasts more than 6 rounds, I'd be shocked. Now, the one fight that actually, I think it actually is now the headlining fight. I'm honestly not sure the way it's being promoted and being shown, is Jose Carlos Ramirez versus Mike Reed. It's subsequently a title eliminator for both these gentlemen here in the super lightweight division. Ramirez, he's a local there. He's from the San Jose area where the fight's going to be at, so that's why he's on the card.
It's actually
Mike Reed.
It's actually Fresno.
Fresno. Okay. What the hell did I say?
San Jose.
Oh well.
It's both California, but yeah, it's a big deal in Fresno. He's like their local guy. He's going to sell probably like 12,000 tickets. So he's a big deal. Like, he actually has been selling 10,000, 8,000 tickets out there at a pop. Like, Top Rank has really built a local attraction there. Smarter there. And I mean, this is why Bob Arum has been in business all these years and still making money. Now, this is an interesting fight. Now, I think we both agree in regards to Mike Reed that he's a boxer, but maybe the biggest problem is he lacks major pop that you need to really be dangerous at this level. And I don't know if he's going to have enough power to keep Ramirez off of him
in this fight. And that's my biggest concern going into this bout. I think he can box with him. I just don't know if he's going to have enough pop to earn that respect and keep Ramirez from pushing forward throughout the bout.
I have not made this pick yet on your podcast. I will be making this pick today for the first time. Jose Ramirez wins this fight by robbery. He wins it by robbery. Mike Reed is a better boxer than Jose Ramirez. He is. He is not going to win this decision in his style. Mike Reed is a back foot, lots of movement, a cutie. California judges come forward guys. They're from that Mexican aggression tradition. I'm talking about the judges and the fans. Mike Reed is not going to win this fight. I think I will score for him, but I will tell you that Jose Ramirez wins this fight by robbery. It could be a close fight. It might be a 9-3 fight. It might be an 8-4 fight. It might be a 7-5 fight. It might be a 6-6 fight. But Jose Ramirez will be winning this fight. It doesn't matter. He is winning this fight by hook or by crook.
Wow. That's kind of a bold prediction that you know about robbery.
I've seen Reed 3 times. I respect him. He's a very skilled fighter. He defense first. The crowd is going to hate him. He's going to probably clown Jose Ramirez's talent. Seriously, he'll box once. He'll run around the ring again. He'll jab. He'll run around the ring. He'll do a quick 1-2 and run. He'll pot shot. They're going to fucking hate him. Okay, Ramirez is going to do his ineffective aggression. He's going to come forward. He's going to miss shots. He'll land a couple every now and then. But I'm telling you, Mike Reed is going to lose by robbery. It just is. It's just the way it's going to be.
I hate to agree, but anytime you have a hometown fighter bring in that many people, it's going to be some funky scoring. I can see that happening already. It's one of those things. I hate to pick against guys that I've interviewed. I have good reports with. I like Mike Reed, but I have a feeling he's going to get screwed. I'm going to pick Ramirez just because I have a feeling it's going to be funny that he's scoring. And I also know this. There have already been talks about Amir Aman, who's on this card as well. He's being featured on this card for the simple fact of they're already planning a fight with him and Ramirez at some juncture here in 2018 for a vacant belt. Yeah. So there's that. So anytime you have that kind of stuff already planned, it's weird.
The irony is Amir Imam is the bigger name and is higher ranked in that organization, and that's the easier fight for Ramirez. Reed is a fucking difficult guy to fight. I mean, he is in that old school. You think about Chris Bird as a heavyweight, where it's like, man, if you don't have crushing power, he's going to make you look really bad. He's just that type of, Mike Reed is going to make people look bad. And you know what? You don't like those guys unless they absolutely dominate. They're not getting the benefit of the scorecards. They don't have a fan base. They don't, Mike Reed is just there. He is going to make people look bad, and he's going to anger those people that spent their good, hard-earned money on Saturday, and they're not going to like him one bit.
Agreed. Sad, but I agree. We'll definitely see. So we have that on ESPN, and then we have a dueling card across the street and on premium cable on HBO. Now this one is a little bit more different, and I think we disagree in regards to who's going to win this. We have Daniel Jacobs, I think he hates being called Danny. Daniel Jacobs versus Luis Arias, middleweight fight. Is his promotional debut with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. It's him coming back to HBO after working with Al Heyman for an extended period of time and fighting on various PBC platforms. Interesting middleweight fight because Arias is a undefeated middleweight. He's at the prospect stage, now in the contender stage. Didn't really know when I interviewed him here 2 months ago what the hell was going to happen with him in regards to Rock Nation, and then this fight popped up. He's really Rock Nation's last hope of any stability there within that cup and them being anything legitimate in the boxing world. For Daniel Jacobs, this is going to be his first fight since losing to Triple G in a entertaining and somewhat competitive fight. not close. I thought, Triple G won the fight clearly. What do you see from Daniel Jacobs in this fight? What should we be looking for in this fight, in his first fight back since losing to Gennady Golovkin?
Well, I think Arias is, Arias is he fought an undercard earlier in the year. In my opinion, I thought he looked really good in his last fight. He's a prospect that I think has kind of been underrated. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he's a good boxer. He's aggressive, but not having huge power. I like him. It's just I don't see the game plan to beat Danny Jacobs. I mean, there's a way to beat Danny Jacobs, which is you knock him out or you hurt him, with something big. And I just don't see Arias having that power. I think Arias has one chance, which is to let it all hang out early in the fight. Maybe Jacobs comes in cold. Maybe he underestimates him. Maybe Arias' speed, becomes more of a, he's underestimated. But I think the longer the fight goes, I just don't see the tools that Arias has to get one up on Jacobs. I think he has a chance early in the fight, but as the fight goes on, I think Danny Jacobs' superior boxing skills, his physicality, his size, I think that will become more of a factor. I look for him to get like an 8th or 9th round knockout. But I think the fight is fun early. I think Arias will I tell people, this is going to be a fun fight. It's fun. Arias has some speed, deceptive speed. He's accurate. He knows how to fight. I just think Jacobs is better. I think the first three to 4 rounds are going to be a lot of fun. Jacobs eventually figures him out and gets him out of there probably about 8 or 9 rounds.
And I'm actually going the opposite direction with Luis Arias, just really for what you said. I think Arias is going to throw caution to the wind, and he's going to go balls out, and he's going to go for the knockout. And if he's able to do that, which we've seen Daniel Jacobs be a little chinny, which oddly enough he stood up to Triple G, which still bugs my mind. You get knocked down by Sergio Mora, but stand up to Triple G. I don't know how any of that shit works. But it's one of those things to where I kind of wonder, is he going to be looking through Arias and looking to see what's ahead and already talking about potential fights in 2018? Is he taking this guy 100% seriously? You kind of wonder sometimes. Anytime I hear about fighters talking about next fights up. I think Arias knows this is it for him. He really, in all honesty, given who his promoter is, he does not know what the hell could be his future after this fight. He's going to need to make an impact in this fight. And with that being stated, I think he's going to go throw caution to the wind. He's even said in the promos, either I'm going to get knocked out or he's going to get knocked out. I really do see him throwing caution to the wind. That opening round is going to be a fill-out round, but come round 2, I think it's going to be, punches flying and shit's going to get weird. I'm going to give him the edge in that regards because I think he has nothing to lose. And when you have a fighter who has nothing to lose, that is one of the most dangerous people in front of you because they know, I don't have shit to look forward to tomorrow morning. I might as well just give it all I got right now. And I don't think Daniel Jacobs can be prepared for that. So I'm going to go Luis Arias for the win via knockout. I'm going to go within 5 rounds because if it goes anything past 5, he is screwed. Daniel Jacobs will probably box his top off, unfortunately.
Well, that's a really bold pick. That's a very bold pick. But I think if you're going to make a bold pick, that's the way you do it. I mean, if you were to come to me and say Arias wins a decision over Jacobs, I can't see that. I can see the first few rounds of the fight. Jacobs has been vulnerable. Listen, he was in that shootout with Peter Quillen where both were hurt in the first round. He got iced in the first half of the fight. I think the 6th round, the first fight he lost against Pirog, 5th or 6th round. He got hurt against Mora in the first round. He got dropped early in the fight against Golovkin. It's clear to me that Jacobs is vulnerable early if he's vulnerable. So if Arias fucked the first round feeling out, I mean, if he just says, I got to go for this now, and I have 4 rounds to do it, that's a very exciting fight. I don't know if he still can do it. I don't know if he's good enough to do it. I don't know if his power is there. But you know what? That's a fun fight. And I think we're going to get a very exciting first few rounds of this fight, and I think people weren't necessarily excited about this matchup, but I think from a entertainment perspective, I think it will deliver.
Agreed. I mean, it's one of those fights, you got to kind of take it for what it is. Don't read too much into it. But I will say this, the winner of the fight is going to have some leverage in the middleweight division in regards to making fights and being on HBO. Like I said, for Arias, I mean, this is his crack. This is his chance because he loses here. Lord knows where he ends up because Lord knows what happens with Rock Nation as a company. So I just wish him the best of luck. I hope he gets the W. I think Daniel Jacobs, win or lose, is still going to be in decent hands with Eddie Hearn. It will make things weird for him his next bout out. But, hey, he's coming off of a loss now and was able to bounce back and get a big deal and get a new promoter and do big things. Now, for also on the card is we talked about him earlier here in the heavyweight division, is Jarrell Big Baby Miller. He's going to be taking on Marquez Walk.
Marius. Let's call it Marius Vok.
Vok. Okay.
Yeah.
This is pretty much going to be a showcase bout for Miller. Shouldn't have any issues in this. It's going to be more of people getting familiar with him and seeing him on HBO. He should win via knockout. At some juncture, I'd say probably within 7 rounds, at least the way I see it. But it should be, like I said, a showcase bout for him. I really hope he doesn't mail it in. He's looked good, in this week's workouts, but you never know with heavyweights. Sometimes they can just look sloppy as shit come fight night.
I think this fight goes with the distance. Vok is a punching bag, but he has a great chin. I think he may have had one knockout loss, but I remember watching the Klitschko fight, how many enormous, huge right hands he took, and he kept coming. Vok's had some steroid issues in the past or PED problems. He's going to be a punching bag. He's going to take Miller rounds. He will not win this fight unless he accidentally lands something. Meaning, if Miller makes a mistake, if Miller throws one of those wide shots, then Walk did hurt Klitschko briefly in their fight years ago. He's a very basic fighter, but he's tough, and he goes round. So I expect Miller to get a unanimous decision. I expect people after the fight to rag on him because, well, why can't they take this guy out? He sucks, blah, blah, blah. I think that's more Vok being tough. I'm assuming Vok's there and wants to fight, not just being an opponent to get the paycheck. But I think it goes the full 10 rounds. I don't believe that Miller will look amazing, but I think that's more of an opponent issue than a Miller issue.
And also rounding out the televised portion of the card here Saturday on HBO. And I'm glad it's finally happening because I'm getting sick and tired of getting damn promotional emails from Starbucks and Cletus Selden versus Roberto Ortiz in a super lightweight bout. I don't really know what to tell people in regards to this fight. I don't know. All I know is I'm getting sick of getting 3 to 4 emails a day in regards to promotion for this fight. I get it. Cletus Selden's promoter really, really wants him to do great things. I don't really care. I mean, it's one of those things like, okay, calm it down. Pull it back a couple of notches. I know you guys are excited you're on HBO, but chill. Like, really be easy with this. So that's the opening bout here on HBO. You have anything to add to Selden Ortiz opening up the HBO portion?
No, I have no idea. And frankly, there's nothing I want to talk about. No, seriously, like the only reason why this is on the card is because Selden sells some tickets. He's from New York, and he sells some tickets, and they negotiated, all right, well, we're going to move X number of tickets, so get us on the undercard, so thus he's on the undercard. That's it. He's not a good fighter. He's also been popped a couple times for PEDs. Let's just say if you're going out and you miss this first fight, so be it. So be it. If you miss the second fight, so be it too. But the main event, I think, should be good. Well, Gerald, to be honest, like Jarrell Miller is a heavyweight worth watching. There are things in store for him in 2018. He hasn't had a lot of exposure. He had some promotional problems for a number of years. It looks like now He's going to be signing with Eddie Hearn, going to get a consistent platform moving forward. He could have big fights on both sides of the Atlantic. So I think he is somebody that boxing fans need to be aware of. He has real power. He's enormous. He sometimes weighs in at 270, 280 pounds. He doesn't look like a heavyweight, like an athletic heavyweight that we want him to look, but he has real power. He is massively big boned, very muscled. He's one of those wild cards. He looks like he has some real power. So he's somebody I think we should be watching. I don't think we should care about the opening fight at all. So that's my take on it.
So that rounds out your fights here on Saturday. There's also a ShowBox card here on Friday. I don't know much about the fighters on there. Just say, hey, if you're home, want to watch something on Friday night, watch ShowBox. Now that I actually have to pay for Showtime, I don't have to pay for it, but it's part of my package now. If I'm home, I'll watch it. I mean, I'm always down to watch some boxing, especially if I'm having to pay an absorbent cable bill. Hey, might as well watch it, soak it up, and enjoy it. Is there anything else? That's pretty much it for the cards this weekend. Is there anything else that I'm missing out on that you want to throw out here? We got one more caller in deck that we want to get to for the show's out.
Well, let's do the caller, and then I'll wrap up. We'll wrap up with something. Let's do the caller.
Right on. We'll call it here from the 415. I think I have an idea who this is. You're live here on Punch to the Face Radio. All right, and then they dropped out. Okay. Never mind. Right. So they dropped out. Maybe they'll call back in.
So one of them, they wait that long, and then the moment comes, and it's the excitement and anticipation is too much. So not everybody can be on for that moment. So they announced today that Eddie Hearn is going to have a minimum of 4 cards on HBO. And I don't think enough has been made about this. For 2018, he's going to have 4 cards. So you have a British promoter, the number one promoter in England right now, who's signing fighters, signing Danny Jacobs, signing Jarrell Miller, looking to sign other people. And it's clear HBO is in the Eddie Hearn business because of potentially getting Joshua fights down the line, and perhaps some of the other fighters that are emerging. I don't think enough of a deal is I know some of this is top-ranked left, and there's a void, but I think it's a pretty big deal for a foreign promoter to get 4 dates on HBO. I think that speaks to, why wasn't another American promoter, a North American promoter, like, how did Eddie Hearn get those dates? I think that's very impressive. And it kind of shows you perhaps what HBO thinks of some of the other people that are out there that are not getting those dates. Golden Boy will still get their dates. But it's very surprising. And I think this is a big story in boxing. And I don't think in American boxing that you have a guy who's legitimately trying to put a foothold. It's not like Frank Warren taking one of his guys over to America for a fight or two. This is Eddie Hearn trying to start to grow his business in America, to make an American business. I'm impressed. It's been very bold. HBO, I think, understands how successful Matchroom has been in promoting in England. I hope they know that a lot of his cards haven't always been that competitive either. Anyway, I'm intrigued. I really am. I'm very intrigued. I want to know your thoughts about it.
Well, I'll maybe kind of be this is what makes us so good when you come on. We play each other's devil advocate. So I'm going to play devil's advocate with you here. If HBO didn't go with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and you say, when these American promoters didn't get the opportunity, what American promoter would you have thrown out there to say maybe sign and get them some dates? Because Top Rank's already with ESPN, Golden Boy's with ESPN and HBO. We know what PBC's doing, so that really only leaves maybe Main Events, who already has some dates with HBO. Who else would you say out there that has fighters of any name recognition that may get signed for a couple of fights or get a couple of dates on HBO?
I guess my point is HBO did not have to make the deal for 4 fights in 2018. They could have let it go on an ad hoc basis. Okay, we're planning a card in April. We're reaching out to the promoters. Who do you have for a fight? You know what I'm saying? Like there was there's no reason that they had to make this deal now for 4 fights. For going all the way a year in advance. That's the point that I was making. Not that the other promoters are bad. It's just that they guaranteed already 4 dates that Eddie Hearn before he's even done a damn thing here.
No, okay. I see where you come from. Agreed. I mean, I think they kind of, see the track history of what he's done over there in the UK and said, you know what? Why not? Why not give this guy a crack? And like you said, you have to respect that he's actually looking to expand his marketplace. He's looking to expand his foothold in boxing. Similar to in many ways what Bob Arum has done or has attempted to do when he tried to cash in on the Chinese and Asian markets with Manny Pacquiao and to a much lesser extent Zhu Shiming. He's tried to do those kind of things and we're unsuccessful. So, time will tell how that works here for Eddie Hearn in the U.S. Honestly, I think it's going to work out pretty well. I think he's got HBO's backing, and if he can put on some good cards, if, say, 2 out of the 4 are really good cards, I think going forward for, 2018 and beyond, I think, it's going to be nothing but bright things for them, and that golden pot could be, like you said, an Anthony Joshua bout at some juncture on HBO, which I think would be a gold mine because everyone wants the heavyweight champion on their network. So I agree. I love the idea of them coming on. I love the opportunity of us maybe getting seeing more international fights on American television without us having to stream it on our damn computers. So, yes, please do more of this. We want more international. This helps open up our palates to boxing.
One of the things that I give Peter Nelson credit for, and he's the head of HBO Sports, is his belief that good fighters can come from anywhere and can be at any weight. So he was behind bringing GGG over. He obviously was behind Roman Gonzalez. He was able to get Inoue from Japan. He's looking all over Dmitry Bivol. Part of it is, they won't work with Heyman in terms of all those fighters. So all of those American fighters are kind of off limits. But, he is scanning the globe, as he should be doing, to say, all right, you know what? We're showing the best fighters. We don't care if they're American or not. We don't care if they're in our traditional weight classes or not. We will show what we think are the best fighters or very captivating fighters. So I give him credit. I don't know if that will lead to ultimately a rating success or a juggernaut for them, but I think he's doing what he needs to be doing with the budget that he has. The other thing that he has in his favor is when you're working with unknown commodities, they are cheaper. So this is the essential kind of more with less that he's doing right now. But I think he's doing a good job of it. I don't think Theo is crying in their milk about their budget being slashed and Bob Arum leading them. I see them in a good sign. I'm happy that they've been active. It looks like we're going to get another Superfly card in the first quarter of 2018. I'm not going to sit here and tell you HBO had an amazing year. They had a good year. But I like that they're continuing to be innovative, with perhaps not the financial backing that they once had. So I think it's some good signs there for HBO. Agreed.
Now, I'm going to take my final rant on a different pathway. Not really a different pathway. I don't know, but you'll probably appreciate this. So, news has broke out here the last 2 days. It's been the buzz of Dana White and the UFC now pushing more forward with the idea of Zuffa Boxing. Zuffa is the parent company of the UFC. This is a bad idea in many ways, in many levels. Dana White feels that the same successful way they built the UFC and he helped build MMA and promote MMA, he's going to be able to do in boxing. You have one fighter who goes over and fights a cross-brand fight and fights boxing and loses badly. You think that you now can promote boxing. Well, I hate to tell you this, Dana White, you can't. And you're going to fail miserably. Ask 50 Cent how that works out for you. Ask Gary Shaw who got out the business. There's a lot of failed promoters who have promoted boxing and figured out this shit is not as easy as it seems. Now, I know Dana White has the money of William Morris Agency behind him, but when you're now funneling money into 2 different combat sport promotions, how's the money going to get split? Also, it's not as easy to both promote fighters and have fighters in the contract with the Ali Act for boxing like you're able to do and fish your way around it in MMA. It also doesn't help for Dana White that he is called barbarian pieces of shit. He's made comments about Oscar De La Hoya being a cokehead and being an alcoholic. How is that going to work out for your relationships with these guys when you want to promote fights? You want to get your fighter fights. More importantly, who the hell are you going to have as fighters? Who's going to tune in to watch MMA fighters try to box? It's called UFC. We've seen them try to box. The shit doesn't work out real well for them. So, for Dana White and the UFC thinking that they can get into boxing and the shit's going to be easy, hate to tell you, buddies, but no, it will not. It will be a flying tanker of shit. It will end badly. I cannot stress this part enough. It will end so badly. So much money will get lost in this. And then what? Then what are you going to do? You're going to try to go back to MMA? You're going to ruin two brands by trying to expand. It's just going to end badly. But I had to get that off my chest because it's annoyed me. I've been seeing that too much on Twitter today. It's just annoyed the shit out of me.
That's a quality rant, Brandon. Here's what I wrote about it. And I'm an outsider. I don't know much about UFC or MMA. If the UFC is doing so well, what the hell is Dana White doing with boxing? That's what I understand.
Exactly.
Like, if their growth is so explosive and exponential, why would you waste your time with a quote-unquote sport that's dead? I mean, how many times have you called boxing dead? It's a dead sport, blah, 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 blah. I think it shows you that they're out of ideas at the MMA. Seriously, that they don't have the trajectory that they want, that they have these new investors that spent an enormous amount of money and are seeking returns that are no longer what they once were. I think this is a desperate move. I'm not going to sit here and say that it can't work. Who knows who he partners with? Who knows, if he lucks into a fight or two? I don't know. He could be a front person for somebody. I don't know. I'm not going to say it can't work. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like he's coming from a strong position. From my understanding, the UFC has not had a good year this year. There is a lack of stars at this point in the sport. Things are not looking good. I don't think the UFC's house is in order. Again, this is from afar. It'd be one thing if
you're correct. You're dead on everything so far.
I mean, it'd be one thing if his house was in order. If they were hitting on all cylinders and all of their pay-per-views were just hitting and they're the talk of town. I mean, from what I'm seeing is that sport's plateauing. I'm not saying it's going away. I'm not saying they're in trouble. I'm just saying they hit a plateau. And they're looking for growth. They're chasing growth like many companies do. They think it's an adjacent sport. We know how to promote MMA. Well, they know how to be kind of a monopoly in MMA. And
exactly.
Unfortunately, boxing is a lot different. There are a lot of promoters that have tried to make it a monopoly. It doesn't really work. No, it doesn't work. They failed. And it's not a question of money. Jay-Z came in with money. 50 Cent had money. It's not like they don't have money. It's just they don't understand how the sport really works. So on the surface, I don't look at this as, this is a brilliant masterstroke. I think it's something that they're looking for ideas and money because what they're having going on right now at MMA and UFC may not be working like it once did.
I would agree. You're dead on everything. For example, they just had a pay-per-view this past Saturday night. No numbers right now on the pay-per-view buys, but they had 3 title fights on the card. All 3 champions lost. All 3 champions ended up losing via TKO or knockout. So, I mean, when you have stars as champions and your champions lose, that's not good. That didn't help out your bottom line. And then all of a sudden this week on Monday, all the talk was, hey, we're going to get into the boxing business. It definitely seems like you're trying to do a money grab for something that I just don't think is there, which is sad. But it is what it is. But, yeah, had to get that off my chest. Also want to say, since we're talking boxing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one other thing here. For an outsider, how are they going to pick up fighters? I mean, it'd be one thing, I guess, if they bring over their guys to, lose, as B-sides. I guess that's a strategy. They could talk up their guys to, get their asses kicked, and they make B-side money. They make decent B-side. I guess they could do that. But it's if they're not going to be taking MMA fighters into boxing, to think that they can just like create a stable of fighters overnight, and develop them and give them money, like that's kind of a pipe dream. It's just, we've seen it before. SMS came in, they tried to build a stable. Jay-Z came to build, they tried to build a stable. It's you need to have people. I mean, boxing people are not trusting folks. And you don't have the bona fides in the sport. How do you expect to get top talent to just want to come with you? I mean, it's not going to be easy.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there to you, Adam, right now, that Dana White actually had a boxing reality show that came on A&E. It got canceled after one show. So that right there shows you his business savvy in regards to the sport of boxing. No one took it seriously. And unless you're going to partner with someone, who are you going to partner with? Because all of the big stars are with PBC, Top Rank, or Golden Boy. Very few are kind of floating out there as being their own separate entities. Are they going to team up with Ringstar? No. K2? No. Main Events? No. So it boggles my mind. And like you said, unless you're going to bring over MMA guys to box, some of these guys already have boxed before. In between MMA bouts, they're not that good. They lose. A lot of them have losing records or have, one or two wins, and that's all the fights they've had. It's just shitty all the way around. Just shitty. It's shitty. Now I'm getting my blood pressure up. Let me calm down. We've had a good show tonight. Shout out to everybody who called in to support the show tonight. Shout out to you. Shout out to my voice for holding up. I did have to do some coughing, but I muted my phone, thank God. It didn't go out like it did last week, so I appreciate that. We'll go ahead and tie up the show because our callers, if they got scared and ran away.
Yeah, just a quick plug. Obviously, I have a website, SaturdayNightBoxing.com. You can find me at SN Boxing on Twitter, SN Boxing on Facebook, a really fun Facebook group. And I got to say, Brandon, not only did you get Chad Dawson into this podcast, but you also got a lot of Dana White. So I applaud you. You're doing good work. Keep it up.
Well, I got to go for the trifecta. I was going to say Eureka Gamboa is now going to be a part of the he's going to be on with the Kovalev card now. So against Jason Sosa, and Jason Sosa is going to wreck him. It's going to be so bad. But that loss will set up him versus Juan Mon in 2018. Mark it down. It's going to happen.
So I think we have a lot of fights in November. It's very odd. There are a lot of big fights coming up in this month, and there's very few of them that are really good. A lot of like B+. Like I look at like Jacobs, Arias, like a B+ fight. It's not like a bad fight, but it's not an amazing fight. So there's a lot of that this month. But I think
it's a lot of good filler.
Like they're not all terrible. I'm just saying it's okay. But next month we got a couple of really great fights, and so it's always more fun when there's really compelling fights. I mean, we spent today talking so much about Wilder and Joshua, but it'd be so much more fun if we were actually talking about them fighting as opposed to the people that they fought. So unfortunately, right now November is not. November 2017 will not be creating lasting memories for the sport, but sometimes we wade through this, and December is looking good, and if Spence Peterson happens in January, that's looking good. So we got a lot of good stuff on the horizon, and as always, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, not a problem at all. The boxing gods have blessed us here in 2017. I do think, that this is a filler month here in November, but you never know. These fights could actually produce some really good action. Could it produce a knockout of the year? We just never know. But that's why we watch the fights. With that being stated, everyone can follow me on Twitter, Brandon P2TF. The show is on iTunes. Search Punch the Face Radio. On Stitcher Radio, also search Punch the Face Radio. And also, again, on YouTube. Again, search Punch the Face Radio. It's pretty simple. We keep it simple. With that being stated, I want to shout out to everyone who supports the show, supports the movement. A big thank you always to Adam Abramowitz, the Saturday Night coming on. As I say at the end of every show, and I mean this more and more because this is a wicked, crazy world we live in, please, love one another. That's the only way we're going to get through any of this. Stay safe, stay blessed, and until next Wednesday, well, you never know, I may try to get Chad Dawson on live on the show. I'm trying for that. We'll be back with next week's Punch to the Face Radio. So again, everybody, this is Brandon Stubbs, and I am out.